2, 3, 4.
Sometimes we need to slow it down, take a look around and breathe. 'Cause these times go by so very fast, moments never last. Just breathe, breathe in, breathe out. Quiet, be still, don't shout. Love is what it's all about. Breathe. Sometimes when you feel you've had enough, living is just too tough. Just breathe. 'Cause you'll regret when these days are past. Your friend just seen your last. Just breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Quiet, be still, don't shout. Love is what it's all about. Just breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Love is what it's all about. Be quiet, be still, don't shout. Just breathe. Just love. Just love. Just love.
Good evening and welcome to the Just Love Show. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Kip, and we're here on a beautiful night. We finally got some substantial rain here. I think every show that I've done up to now, it's been bone dry, but we have gotten probably 6 inches of rain in the past 2 days, which we sorely need. Not complain at all. Absolutely just feeling very blessed for the storm. So we're going to start off the show like we always do. Take a deep breath, sit back, relax, think about all the things that we have to be thankful for. Just slow your mind down. Sit back, really look around your home, wherever you're at, your car, wherever you find yourself right now, and just think about how truly blessed you are to be alive and truly how blessed you are to be loved and to be able to love. And take that out into every moment of the rest of your week until we get to meet again. And before I get to my guest this week, by the way, it's nice to be back. 2 weeks I was gone, not doing a live show, and I really missed everyone. I'm really bummed out. And if my friend in Siberia is out there, hey. Gonna do like I've been doing every show and read from something that I've been writing for the past 5 years. This is actually something that came to me just before the show, and usually I try to find something that goes along with the guest I have. And this just sort of came to my mind while I was up here getting things ready earlier. Love is the force in our experiences of life that drives us through the pain and sorrow on tomorrow when all reason and logic says not. And now we will get to my guest tonight, who I was introduced to by one of my very best friends, Alan Larson, who is just a really, really wonderful human being. And he started telling me about this writer named Cleo Everest, who actually lived over here in Marin County. That's why I'm so blessed to have her in the studio, actually live, the only second time we've done this. Cleo she has a blog called His Giant Mistake, and it's her personal story about infidelity. But the larger part of the story, as I got to spend some time talking with Cleo, is about how we've accepted betrayal into every aspect of our lives with almost no acknowledgement and certainly no accountability from corporations to government. And then, if you believe the old adage that the fish rots from the head down, now into our personal lives. And Cleo's just done a really amazing job of bringing this personal experience and helping touch people on a larger scale as to how betrayal really affects and disrupts everything in our lives, takes away our peace, takes away our ability to love, to trust. And if there isn't trust, it's very hard to love. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Cleo Everest, and she can tell us all about his giant mistake.
Thank you, Kip. It is really, really cool to be here. Very grateful that Alan brought us together. Thank you. We're both reveling in the rainstorms that have been pummeling us. I swam in the rain today, literally. I was so excited to be out in it. So it's very, very cool time for we're in right now for Northern California.
Yeah.
So yes, I began blogging 2 weeks after I answered a pocket call or butt dial and listened to my former spouse, spoiler, walk with his mistress into what sounded like a hotel lobby, high heels clicking on a marble floor. And I listened for 3 minutes and 50 seconds. At first I almost hung up, but I literally watched my hand come back to my head.
What were as the 3 minutes? I know there had to be sort of phases at first, like I'm sure you went through in that 3 minutes, like denial, acceptance, anger, all compressed all at once. Okay, that's not him. Oh my God, that is him. To I'm enraged, I'm gonna hang up, now I've got to hear. So what was this? What were those 3 minutes like?
It was an out-of-body experience. It was incredibly surreal. I really became alive. Like every molecule in my body was on high alert. And as I said, like I had received pocket calls all the time from him, and then when I answer and there's no answer response, it's like, oh, pocket call, saying just hang up. And we had just said our goodbyes to each other. He was leaving from a different city on a 2-month business trip. And we were buying a house the next morning, the house we were going to grow old in together. And I had said goodbye, hung up, and the phone rings again, and I say hello, and I went to hang up when I realized that it was just a pocket call, and I just remember seeing my hand bring the phone back to my head. And when I heard, the first thing I heard were clicks, and then I realized it was high heels. And then I went through this process of analysis. It's so funny how, our beloved brains, they can create so many challenges for us. But when we're in a survival mode, when we're in sort of like that fight or flight mode, which is whenever we are placed in an experience that blindsides us, that is that mode, right? Our brains are so effective because mine was just clicking, going 1,000 miles a minute, and it was like high heels, phone must be in his pocket. The heels aren't getting any farther away, they're not getting closer, they're right next to him. I hear someone giggling, it's a female voice. I hear what sounds to be like his voice, but it's muffled. He must have a jacket on. The high heels are still there. And then I hear someone say, good evening. And I immediately think hotel lobby elevator. Doors, And then I hear like a different kind of clicking. I've heard that clicking 1,000 times. That's what a lobby sounds like. And then that stopped. And then I heard very clearly his voice say, we'd like to order a bottle of wine here and then take to our room. And the word our, it was like somebody just said, the world imploded. That was the definition of the word our in that moment in time.
Right.
And at that moment, I experienced every emotion under the sun, from just absolute rage to total fear, to then rationalizing it. In 2 minutes, I had him having a long-term affair, a double life, another family, or he was with a hooker. I mean, I had like...
Which one of those would have been least hurtful? Or would they...
Well...
I mean, in hindsight.
Because I think there is when we talk about betrayal, I'm glad that you raised that point, because when you talk about betrayal, we need to give each other wiggle room. So I remember the next day saying, well, actually, I kept this to myself for a few days. When I had the courage to call my dear friend at the time, she's still my dear friend, not at that time. But at the time when I called her, I remember saying, maybe he was just with a hooker. He was on a business trip at a hotel lobby bar, but that word hour stuck with me. It was like, you wouldn't say that. You'd say the room. It would be impersonal. It was like I had been trained by the CIA. I was profiling
Right.
everyone under the sun. But that experience, that's part of being human. But people who experience, highly structured, covert, dealings, repeated deceit, and that's a whole different ball game.
There's a whole bunch, and you and I got to talk for quite a while the other day that I really want to get into. After I ask this question, I would like to go back to, sort of your journey before meeting him, what your life was like before. But did you have any idea? I mean, because this went on for 5 years.
Right.
Spoiler alert. Did you have any idea, or did this completely blindside you?
Total blindside.
Really?
Total blindside.
Wow.
We had just moved across the country. We were starting this next phase of our life together. We had 2 young children that we had later in life. I was 40 when I had my first son. He had traveled a ton in his line of work, and we were looking forward to trying to figure out ways to reduce that. We wanted to leave the East Coast, which I think we both found at the time to be a little too intense for us. I was looking at this as all in for the long haul. We go through our growth spurts together. We had challenges in our relationship. I can't imagine anyone who doesn't. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they are out there, but I bet it's because they worked through a lot. I don't think you get spit out of the gate, and certainly not when you're raising young children. It's really, you have to find the new you in all
Right.
of that. So I had no idea. I mean, I go back to this, when I was moving, after I found out and we parted ways, I moved, and I found an anniversary card that was written to me 1 month before we moved to California. This was in year 4.5 of the affair.
So this was when you left Philadelphia to come out here?
Right.
Wow.
Left the East Coast. And
I had that completely played out different in my head. I thought that had happened, and then you moved out here.
No. We moved
Okay.
out here, intact family, on Valentine's Day. This was like, we were really excited for this move. Now I understand why maybe he was partly excited, because his mistress lives on the West Coast. But I don't really, I can't speak for him, right? But what I can speak to is, receiving an anniversary card where it's not just you buy the Hallmark card and you write, "Love, hubby." It's, you are my angel. You bring out the best in me. He literally crossed out a word and replaced it with blessed. I am blessed to have you in my life. That I don't understand.
So do you, and we talked about this a little bit, do you feel that all was an entire lie, or there's any truth beneath that? I mean, now that you have some distance, and obviously been doing a ton of work.
Yeah.
Have you, or do you just feel like it's almost like a complete sociopath, like just saying whatever that could keep you as much in the dark as possible?
I feel like at the time when I found that card, I just couldn't believe the level of crazy making that was going on, craziness, the lying. And then I thought about what it takes to lie for 5 years, when, and to then also have all of that energy diverted away from your primary relationship. Like, how do you manage that? I don't know how you do.
Well, and that's something we talked about, because you asked him a question that fascinated me, and I realized why, after our conversation, why it fascinated me. When you asked him how he did what he did, and to
I said,
paraphrase,
what did it feel like to lie in that way?
right, and
His response was, "You don't want to know."
and obviously what I said to you when we talked is I would want to know more. No, you're going to have to tell me more than that. But I also thought, and you just hit on it, is when you look at you look at shows like Scandal and all these shows, they've got affairs going on constantly, and they're not fictional. This goes on in Washington all the time. And I look at it just in the same way that you talked about taking away from your primary responsibility. All of the good that you could be doing, I look at somebody like Bill Clinton, and I think about all the shenanigans he was up to, yet all the great things he was able to accomplish. And I'm just thinking, or Anthony Weiner, it's like, do you see what you're sacrificing for something that is basically a whippet of pleasure, if you will? It's like, you've gotten high off of a whipped cream can while you've got this just blessed, peaceful, amazing thing that you're doing with your life, whether it's family or trying to change the world. It's like these things have to impact you in a way to take away from, as you said, your primary responsibility.
Yeah. Well, let's say, obviously he wasn't happy in our marriage. I think it's safe to say that.
How long were you married?
15 years.
Okay.
But in general, to move more broad to a broader platform, there's a few things that go on. One, the choice to have a fun, playful conversation at a hotel bar with someone is an easy choice to make, right?
Right.
And then the choice to send that person 4 weeks later a picture of your penis is a really stunning choice to make, right?
Right.
But 31 days or 28 days transpired. And in that time, the ego is working it. It's no big deal. Nobody's going to find out. You deserve to be able to have this. You're working so hard. What's a little release?
Right.
Maybe this is where I'm supposed to be. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not my marriage. Maybe I married the wrong girl. Maybe I should have never gotten married in the first place. I should go have sex with that woman. I mean, that is literally what goes on. It's like that first choice to do something seemingly innocent. It's like the hibernating bear's first salmon. That puppy's going to eat some more, And so I think that goes on. Then the other part of it, that's the sort of 3D human sort of, ego part of it. But the part that I recognized that really saved me from, I shouldn't say saved me, I should say the part that I recognized that made me, one, want to speak out about betrayal loudly without wagging my finger at people, and two, had me cheering humanity, not crying over humanity's choices, is that I believe we need to have big wake-up call experiences in order to get us to evolve, right? So I look at this explosion in infidelity in these TV shows, and nobody's shocked by an affair except the person who finds out that it's happening to them, right? So that to me is that last push before we actually sort of click into that next emotional evolution, where the things of the mind and the body, it's not that we want to walk away from sex or walk away from that amazing feeling of love. It's that we want to experience it in a much more evolved way.
Right.
And we're getting there. But as you and I talked about, or we used this same word, we're sort of in that adolescent stage. So there's lots of experimenting going on. There's lots of, should I be polyamorous or polygamous or ambidextrous or whatever, you know? We're experimenting.
Right.
And I think as long as we shine a light on the morality of the choices that we're making, we are going to speed up this evolution that is destined to happen.
And I agree, and just sort of playing devil's advocate, it seems like we've been in this adolescence for a long, long time. I would say the difference from my perspective, in fact, I was watching something, I think, on history or whatever, is about Pompeii, and they were just saying, basically it's like from the ruling class to everyone was involved with prostitution. Everyone, so we've been trying to figure this out for a really, really long time, as far as how we move beyond this adolescence, how we start to what our relationships are going to look like. And I do think it's different now, just because I think we've sort of reached a critical mass. And I've got this friend of mine named Malachi Roth, who's a director. And anyway, he was talking about how he feels that we needed to have a certain amount of population in order for us to reach this combined level of awareness and awakening, and that we had to get to this point with this many people for it to reach that critical mass. So I think that that's what makes this time a little bit different.
Yeah, and if we both reflect back on evolution, it is just the slowest moving process, and it's not surprising to me that since Pompeii and before, that we've been trying to figure this out. And I think that's interesting, that we needed to have a certain size, population. I hadn't heard that before, but that makes perfect sense to me, because we need all of our energies in order to create this shift. And also, I think you need to have heft, let's say. If you only have 10 people and 2 of them are saying, come on, let's evolve, it's probably not going to happen. But if you have 100 and 40 of them are saying it, then you can start to sway people to your side and enlighten them or educate them or what have you, or lead by example without expecting them to follow, but they follow anyway. So I feel like us who are alive on this planet right now have a huge opportunity, but B, we were born at such a fantastic time. And that's why I'm unwilling to let this experience that I had pass. I have had 3 of the most magical years of my life. And in those 3 years, I moved across the country. I found out my husband was having an affair. I got divorced. I sold the house that we bought the morning after I found out about his affair. Moved again to a rental. Had 50% of the time with my 2 children taken from me without me saying that's cool. My mom dies, and I'm out here all alone. And those 3 years were the 3 most magical years of my life. That's probably not the normal look back and comment, given what's happened.
Well, you and I talked about this on the other day when we were chatting, and I was sharing, all the things that I'd gone through in my life, and I spent years in shadow, and a lot of it was my choosing, some of it wasn't, and I wouldn't change any of the things I've gone through, because they've really, I don't know that I was even thinking about it with regards to the hemp project that I was working on. I think if I hadn't gone through and chosen this path, and I'd gotten, say, your 9-to-5 job or gone your usual career route, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. And even though this journey for me started a long time ago, it didn't fully manifest to what it is today until after I'd gone through everything, until literally I'd pushed myself to that critical mass of the brink of death. And then going, okay, and that was my question when I reached that brink of not, I'm going to stop doing this thing that's killing me, but if I don't figure this happiness thing out and figure a way to have joy in my life, then I've got to figure a quicker way out and make, a better exit. One thing that I wanted to go back to was what, now that you're on this path, have you always been on this path? How did you meet him? What was your upbringing like? What was your foundation that allowed you to become and manage this the way you have?
I was raised Catholic, the last child in a very big family, and my mom and dad. Well, my dad converted, but my mom was, as Catholic as they come. Red phone to the Pope, and I went to Catholic school, and that was my upbringing. I didn't have any real spiritual understanding beyond that, but I did have an intuition. I didn't know it at the time, but I had a fairly well-developed Piscean intuition. And I remember I was out of college. I was probably around like 25 or 26. My dad had just recently died. He died when I was 23 with, not a lot of warning. And I moved to Philadelphia. And I had been living home at the time. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and they turned me on to this woman. Her name is Melissa Halsey. She actually just moved to Sonoma. She's a remarkable woman. And I didn't understand what she did. She did stuff with like chakras, and I had no clue what they were. And she did this thing called conscious breathing. And I'm like, I'm conscious, I'm breathing. I mean, how is that all of a sudden something somebody can teach, We do it instinctually. And I was on a fishing boat at the time, and I loved to fish, deep sea fish. And I remember this woman telling me this, and I was just like, you are nuts. I'm going to go back to fishing. And then it kept coming up, and this woman kept coming up, and so I went to go see her. And long story short, with Melissa, I ended up participating in this whole long, year-long seminar on conscious breathing, where I would drive from Philadelphia to Virginia and spend the weekends with her. And it was amazing. And at the time, I was a type A salesperson in a high-stress job. And I was married, but my husband was traveling all over the world. And that was cool for me because I didn't ever really want to get married, and I didn't want to have children, and I just wanted to do my work and, just go out and be that type A, uptight salesperson. And slowly that seminar started to open me up. And at the very end of it, we did a walk over an 8-foot diameter. We did a fire walk, right? And this was not like coals or slightly burning embers. This was a fire that had burned down for 4 hours. It was massive. And we were walking on 1,200 degree burning embers that were so hot that you could not have your face near them. And you stood around this circle, and when you were ready to walk, you raised your hands and you slowly walked across this red hot fire, and nothing happened to my feet. And I was like, all right, there's something to this. So that was a game changer. But then life intervenes again, right? And I go back to work and all these things. And every time I would drive back from Virginia, it was like I was levitating. And then I'd get back into my job and deal with my stuff. And I was very, I was all coming from my head. I literally physically did not feel anything below my collarbone during that time period when I was, working and doing my thing. I was just all ego. I was 100% ego. And I think your audience probably understands this. I'm not talking about the ego that says, I'm so great. I'm talking about the ego that actually more often than not says, you suck, or you're not deserving of this, or why would you think that you could have this? Or, oh my God, you better be careful. This doesn't look like a good situation.
Or the worst kind of ego, the one that implores you, like you said, the ego that says, oh, you can do this and you deserve it. The ego that tells you to do things that later you're going to regret.
Yeah, basically, the ego looks at whatever the situation is that we're faced with and takes the more potentially disastrous path. That's its job. Because then it can keep you alive. And then it has a job.
Right.
And that's the evolution
that
we're
lawyer.
talking about. Exactly. And that's the evolution that we're talking about. I feel, without having studied with any masters or, I have a Bachelor of Science in television and radio. I strongly feel, intuitively feel, that we are evolving this ego right out of our physical form.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me of a dog, of a dog that's being put down, or an animal that's fighting for its last breath. It is going to fight.
And it is. It's fighting so hard. And the thing for me is that we are, it's pretty much commonplace now to hear people say we're spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. And ultimately, what we are is spirit. It's not even so much a human experience necessarily. It's an experience in matter. It's an experience in physical form. And the thing is, this thing that we are now being called to, this love that we feel in our soul, this infinite being that we know is, even science is it's the only thing that makes sense. To being, you can't have it both ways. We're still trying to straddle that fence a little bit. Yeah, look, we got all these toys and everything. And, it's like, oh, and we get to experience this. But man, this feels really good. This pure spiritual thing where I'm released, I'm at peace, I'm at bliss. But God, all these ecstasy things over here, the pendulum swinging that you talked about.
Right.
But we're I think I know for myself personally, that's where I've got to get to. It's like, it's beyond, like, even looking back now. It's like, this is the daily quest, because I see that ultimately that is when I look at the big picture of life's process, and the only reason, to my mind at least, that we're here is to serve creation's process, to play a role in life's process, just as the things that make us are serving their role, we're serving a role. And I think we're gradually waking up to a greater understanding of cause and effect. We seem to understand it perfectly well when it comes to our inventions, our cars, our computers, that all the parts have to work in a certain way for these things to work. When it comes to us as individuals working as a collective, we're just getting there. We're just starting to wake up to the fact that not only as a collective of this species human, but as beings on this planet that are taking part in this just beautiful experience of life on this amazing planet, we also have an integral role and a responsibility to all other life, not just human life.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me is That's what love is. That's that awakening that we get to where, as you said, it's beyond the me. And I think that people, there was a lady I listened to when I was over in doing a film shoot in Monterey, Judith Blackstone, and she really put it really well. She said, with Eastern understandings, people get confused and they think it's about you no longer have a you. There is no self. It's not what it's about. It's about your preferences, what makes yourself, not being any more important or valuable than someone else's. Understanding without judgment, letting yourself just be, and being able to share those experiences without that wall of ego saying, no, my way is better than your way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the litmus test, maybe that's the right way to say it. If you're coming from your ego, whatever you're talking about or pondering is an us versus them situation. If you're coming from your heart and not your ego, then it is a collective. It's a we. And we all play roles here. That idea of we're a spiritual being having a human experience, I do believe that we asked to be here. Mm-hmm. And I believe like one of the things that I talk about on my blog and in the book that I wrote, His Giant Mistake, which is basically like, I realized after a year of writing that without intending to write a self-help book, I wrote a self-help book. Mm-hmm. And it was because of all the input that I was getting, the collective we, all the input that I was getting from thousands of people all over the world. Just like each one planting, every time I'd write, people would comment or I'd get emails and they'd plant something in me. And I committed to just following blindly the suggestions that were coming to me. And I'm grateful that I did, because I learned a lot. The idea that we are coming not from our ego and not in an us versus them way is what taught me that my former spouse didn't do something to me. I created this experience. I, as a soul, wanted a human life so that I could learn something to assist in my evolution as a being, not as a human, but as a being. And I sat down one day in some far off dimension that I don't even understand, and I had a conversation with the soul of my former spouse, and we decided, game on, let's go give it a whirl. And I have a feeling that really is how it plays out for two reasons. One, I remember being in the kitchen. He was gone for 2 months and he returned and denied that there was any affair. And then finally I got a little smart and I searched for the word love in his Skype application, and up came the profiles of 3 women: his mom, me, and her. And that's how I found out, as if I needed that proof. So I remember after I discovered it, I remember standing in the kitchen and hugging him and saying, I love your soul. I remember saying that. I don't know where who does that? I think there was a veil lifted, and I was not at all conscious of what was coming out of my mouth. But
That's the best place to be.
Right. And when I reflect back on it, because the conscious part would be like, you bastard. And trust me, I've had my moments there, for sure. But that is what I go back to, and I feel those words coming out of my mouth. And I'm okay saying that, I feel like we made a commitment to each other. There's another short story not mine, but I work with people going through these experiences on the trails. And I was on the trail with a guy who was engaged and at the time discovered that his fiancée was having multiple liaisons. And he was devastated. Very open-hearted guy, just a huge, warm, delightful spirit of a man. And he said, as we're walking along the cliffs, right at the edge of the cliff, he says, the moment at which I wanted to kill myself, and I thought, oh God, don't do this now. I'm not ready for this, was when I asked her what I could have done better in this relationship. And she said to me, nothing. Everything was perfect. And a light bulb went off. And without hesitation, I just looked him in the eyes and I said, that was her soul talking to you. That was her soul. It was perfect. What she taught you in that experience has jettisoned you off to where you are now. And you have the opportunity to make huge choices right now that are going to just blow apart your world. Mm-hmm. And she has her choices to make. And we don't judge either one of you for your creation. But when she says it was perfect, it was. And when I told him, I love your soul, I do. As much as I want to enjoy hating him. It's a much easier thing to do, one would think, if you're not fully integrated, to just hate somebody. Be like, oh, what a jackass. Right. Done with him. You know? I don't feel like I need to be obligated to have what society might call a relationship with him, a productive relationship with him. I can't have a counterproductive relationship with him. We share the parenting responsibilities of two children. I don't have to hug him and, want to spend time with him and all of those things. Right. That part of our world is finished. Right. But from where I sit right now, and as I go through my day, every day, and as I interact with our children that we created, I absolutely am obligated, out of my own choice, to love him. It feels better.
Well, it's also important for people to understand what hate is. Hate is fear combined with disdain. And fear is, everything is love. And the way I started to really feel about it, and I really feel strongly about it, and I think it's part of the reason that we as a collective are experiencing so much pain and suffering and sorrow in this, what should be a really wonderful experience. Because if you peel back all of the things that are wrong with humanity, almost all of them, all the pain and suffering we're doing to ourselves. And all we have to do is stop, and our existence here would be entirely different. And not that their existence was perfect, but indigenous peoples all around the world got this. This wasn't something that, this isn't some newfangled idea. There's been cultures throughout history that have got this. And I just hope, I know one thing that doesn't feel satisfying to me is I'll talk to people, we go in these 12,000 year cycles. Not interested in that explanation. What does make a lot of sense to me is that when you're experiencing love is fear, because they're the same. Everything is love, even fear is love. What you've gotten out is, because love is an infinite thing. So it's not one thing in any given experience you choose to have, nor is it one thing in any given relationship that you have. And if you're not in tune with what the love is in that experience that you've chosen to have, that has certain rules and laws to it, every relationship does. A relationship that we've come to have in this experience has rules and laws. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that relationship. It's the same thing with couples or friends or anything. When you're in tune, you're that song on the radio that you can't hear enough of. But then something happens, whatever it is, and all of a sudden the static starts to come in. and you're not hearing it clearly. And pretty soon that thing that you enjoyed is really uncomfortable to the point where you don't want to even be a part of it anymore. And I think that's what happens with us becoming hateful of things, is that we're so far out of tune that now this love has become just despise and ugliness. Everything that we feel love isn't, but it really is. It's just we're not in tune anymore with that thing that we should be loving.
I wonder if when that white noise or the static, when the static comes into our relationships, if we paid attention to that instead of just like in my marriage, that static happened. I was like, we'll get through it. We'll get through it. I didn't have the maturity with regard to my emotional communication skills to sit down and have a loving, open-hearted conversation with
to
my
try to
former
tune
spouse.
it back in.
Right, and neither did he.
Right.
Neither one of us
Most
were
people
talking.
don't.
Right. It's, people can talk about how they feel. Usually it's, I always hear people say, like, a great couple always has fights. Sure, that's awesome. But I feel like we need to teach that. And maybe that's part of the evolution, that as we get deeper into ourselves and into hearing the sound of our heart versus the sound of our ego, discerning between the two voices, putting the ego's voice aside and allowing the heart's voice to actually have center stage, then these relationships, they're going to be so deep and rich that even if they do need to come to a romantic end, they will continue on as productive relationships. And this idea of marriage till death, completely human crafted. It's these commitments that we have, they don't have timestamps on them. These soul commitments that we have to each other, they don't have timestamps. It's not, in 2013, we're going to back off each other.
Right.
It's about learning. It is about learning lessons, having experiences, and growing individually, and others agreeing to help you. And when you finally learn the lesson, you're supposed to go your separate ways. This is an individual experience on this planet.
Again, using the radio song analogy again, we all have those songs that you'll hear the first time. You're like, oh my God, this is the best song ever. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but say something like Pharrell's Happy, although I love that song. I could listen. I just think it's a great song. I love the message in it. But there are these songs that they'll be like that blast, and there's nothing there. I couldn't listen to that song. But, okay.
In the beginning.
but it's not a bad song. But say a song like that where there's nothing behind it, but you'll listen to it like 10 times. You're like, oh my God, I love it, love it. Why am I listening to the song? Right. Then there's other songs that the more you listen to it, like say, for me, like say listening to Queen, where you just hear the layers and layers and layers.
Yeah.
And I think the good analogy is the difference between listening to a Kiss song and listening to a Queen song.
Yeah.
It's great. I can listen occasionally to a Kiss song. If I try to listen to them back to back, I'll put a gun to my head and that's it. Now Queen, I can listen to over and over again. Now there's on occasion, there's that song that is bold and you can listen to forever and you keep hearing things and you liked it from the beginning. I think those are similar to relationships where you'll have those wow, what was I thinking? Then you'll have the thing where you get to know somebody more and more and you just fall more and more deeply in love. And that's a song you hear for a long time. Then there are those very fortunate few who just, it's that love at first sight. It's the thing that they keep hearing forever. And that's sort of the way.
Yeah, and maybe that's why as we get older, we embrace classical music, because we've developed these different ears that we hear with, and we don't need to we can actually lose ourselves in the complexity of that and get it for a while, I feel like in the relationships that we have, that point at which this song becomes nails on the chalkboard, that is the universe's way of of really shaking us up.
Right.
And there were times in my marriage where I should have paused, slowed down, as you said at the beginning of the show, and said, okay, this isn't right. You know, there were self-esteem issues, there were ego issues, there was, we got married, and, you know, and we have this house and a mortgage and jobs, and what we just keep going forward, go, 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 right? And there's just not a lot of self-awareness in that. There's not a lot of slow pondering. I think if I had just pondered without fear the state of my life at that time, I would see 10 different ways in which serious issues needed to be addressed. And again, I wasn't equipped to do it, and neither was my partner. Now, with that massive wake-up call that blew apart our relationship and ensured that there was no going back, gratefully, I was put into a room that was just mirrors. And I made a commitment through my writing to view it as a full-time job, that I was going to excavate myself until I got down to nothing.
Right.
And that is when I figured it all out.
Isn't that an amazing process? I mean, you never stop going through it.
No, but this was sped up because of the way it all came together. And then in that first year, I wrote, for people who write, I wrote over 200,000 words. I probably wrote close to 250,000 words. I published 160,000 words. That's 2 novels in 1 year. That process, so writing, as people say, it's so true. What a great tool to use going through that process. I sped up that process. I got a doctorate in 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And now there is, like you said, there's no going back.
Right. And you keep digging.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing, that one common theme that I've found from all the guests that I've had on the show, and it's been a variety of people, is all of these things, no matter what perspective, religion, faith, occupation you're coming from, once you get on this path, it's, I think, and I've talked with Harold Becker at the Love Foundation, and I think that there's this idea that all of a sudden you get there and you sprout butterfly wings and you're flying over a meadow, and it's not, it's work. And work's not a bad thing.
It's beautiful work.
Yeah, it is. And it's really, it's meaningful. And like, as a writer, I think one thing that people don't often understand about why we write, and I always tell people when people say, oh, thank you, this is awesome, I say, well, one, I'm just shared with me. I believe infinity being what it is. Everything that is already here is already, and all I'm doing is manifesting something that's here. I'm not actually creating something new. And I read stuff back, and it's all for me. It's for me to reflect on the journey I'm on, and I'm happy that other people get it. But I'm not writing from the place of ego at all. I'm writing because these are things that I need to read. These are, I'll write stuff and I'm like, who wrote that? I mean, that happens almost every day, where you'll read back your own words. You're like, wow, that's a really good thought.
Yeah. Although part of that human experience, you made me think of this before when you were talking about that, you used the word ecstasy,
Mm-hmm.
So you have this spiritual calling, and then you have all this ecstasy over here, and it's like, and one of the realizations that I had is, and the evidence that I take to this is, indulgence to excess is bad in all forms,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And the soul asked for a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so while it probably looks on like a parent who's frustrated when we go off the deep end with some sort of human experience, whether it's food or it's drinking or it's sex or it's excessive acquisition of material goods, it's like, that's not what we're here for, because you're shut down. Like you're not even hearing your soul.
Right.
Right? But if you are, taking a luxurious vacation in a villa, and you're looking at the grandeur of this planet, and you are grateful for that experience, then I feel like that is part of why the soul's here, to have a sensory experience where we're touching each other or we're tasting something magical. That sensory experience I think is really important. And the idea of that pendulum is have the sensory experience, but don't be swinging all the way over there where you shut yourself down because you're completely coming from ego within it.
And I think that's another point of critical mass we're reaching, where we're speeding up so fast and we're anything but paying attention. And I think that's the biggest difference between ancient cultures and modern culture. They knew just as much as we did, if not more than we did, but it all came through observation. I think one of the greatest losses in modern civilization is the time to observe, is the ability to observe. Observe ourselves through observing nature, through through just taking in our surroundings, taking in our soul. And I think we're getting to a real tipping point on that, because we're getting to the point where literally physically we cannot take in any more than we are. And there's something that's going to happen where we're going to burst out of this chrysalis and back to the butterfly, and we are going to become the butterfly. Mm-hmm. We are going to break away from this chewing on leaves as fast as we can. Also, we're going to exhale. And that exhaling is actually the definition of nirvana, when you let go.
Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's happening. We are observing ourselves now. We are observing here in Marin. Plastic bags are outlawed. We're observing. It is such a slow process. It's glacially slow. And one of the best tools that I got actually from this woman, Melissa Halsey, that I did not cultivate until my world went head over heels. I actually call the observer self. And that is I talk about benching my ego, which is like saying, you were awesome in last year's championship, but we have a completely different scheme this year, so we're not using the 3-4 defense. So you're on the bench, and I've got this new starting quarterback here, and she's my observer self. And not long after I found out about my husband's affair and we separated, I went on a date with that chick. I literally cooked her a meal in my house. I lit candles, and I had a date with her, and I got to know her. And so much came out in that evening. And the fact that I recognized that she was there, it was like you're in high school and it's Carnation Day, and the cutest boy sends you a carnation, and you're like, oh my God, he knows I'm alive. It was like that. I felt her go, oh my gosh, she finally figured it out. And ever since that time, some peaks and valleys along the way, but whenever, which is now more peak than valley, I come to the table with her by my side, I make better choices. I'm more conscious. I'm more plugged into this planet. I'm aware daily of how unbelievable it is that we are on the ball floating in space. And
pretty unbelievable.
And that we're surrounded by these stars. And that we're these beings that by and large are doing a pretty killer job. We don't have many manuals when we get here, and we're kind of figuring it out. And a lot of people are playing a lot of different roles, and some look good and some look bad, but we're all here. And it just fills me with so much enthusiasm for life and joy. And she keeps me conscious. She keeps me fully present in the moment. She does that. Not my ego. My ego's like, oh my God, up ahead, danger, danger. Oh my God, the past, it's so horrible. Ah. You know, she's the one who's like, oh no, we're right here. Cool.
Yep, I understand fully. We could go on for a lot longer. We're getting close to the end, and I want you to share how people can get a hold of you, where they can reach you. If there's any last thoughts you'd want to share about the work that you've been doing, please do, and then introduce your song.
Oh, yeah. So hisgiantmistake.com is where the blog lives. I am launching cleoeverest.com probably by the first of the year or sooner, where I'll be working more with the idea of betrayal in society at large and just trying to help that shift away happen. My book, His Giant Mistake, is available on Amazon and Facebook and Twitter, Cleo Everest. And we have created a community that is super upbeat and positive. So there's no bitter ranting going on or like, you know.
It's not a Taylor Swift song.
No, that's such a great, yes, it's not. Even Taylor's moving away from that.
Although I love angry chick songs. I do.
So that's where I live, in those places, and I respond to every email, and I work with people one-on-one. In the beginning of the year, we're going to be doing an online course on being able to spin magic out of things like divorce and infidelity. And definitely this time of the year, it can be very intense. I just put up a post today about the holidays. Christmas is Thursday, just like any other day. And so helping people to reframe how we look at these creations that we've made that can cause some stress around this time of the year. And so the Parlotones, just a fantastic band from South Africa, and that's where I got the name His Giant Mistake, was because one of their songs called Giant Mistake, which is about infidelity, but this song is Stars Fall Down, and they're South Africa's biggest rock band.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for being here, and I want everyone to remember that the greatest gift, forget black this, black that, give your love. That's the most important thing you can give this time of year. It's something everyone needs more of. Not to be cliche, but really, that's what I wanted for the treat, more love. And Gordon will play the song now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trace my face, well it's a happy face. When my smile fades, wanna remember this day. Passion killed by the comfort of time. I'm sorry if this makes you cry, but I have to speak my mind and suck the colors from my eyes when they lose their sparkle, forget to shine. Remember all the times you turned me down. I'm sorry if this hurts your heart, but where's the spark from the stars? Oh, don't stop. Don't stop. Nothing lasts forever. Soon we will be sober, so let's laugh, talk, tickle and taste till the stars fall down. The stars fall down. Embrace my reflection for a little while. If I am to love, I must try love myself. Cuddle with the cold, cold like rain. I'm sorry if my view of matrimony seems obscure. Where's the view? Don't stop. Don't stop. Nothing lasts forever. Soon we will be sober. draw the lament on the starlight event. And dance naked under starlight. There's something about the glow that blows just right. Let's meet tonight, lost, forget about the past and just laugh, talk, tickle and taste till the stars fall down. The stars fall down. And don't stop, but don't stop. Nothing lasts forever. Soon we will be sober, illuminated by the blood-red sun. Let's fantasize before the real world comes, crashing and colliding like lightning's angry temperaments. Robin teenage loves, time will soon be up. Don't stop, don't stop. Nothing lasts forever. Soon we will be sober. Trace my face, well, it's a happy face when my smile fades and I'm old and gray. All I'll have are these moments to retrace.